In last week's episode, we stepped the new mast on the boat. Everything went well and we could go back to our home port Malmö.
So I'm preparing the last things on the boat. The arch is coming today, and they're going to probably a lot of the things we're going to weld directly here on the boat, some of the brackets. So hopefully everything will fit. Otherwise, they said that they will take it back to the shop again to do alterations. But from the pictures they sent me yesterday, it looks very good.
After getting the arch in the correct position, they welded it directly on top of the old push pit brackets, which made installation pretty straightforward. The horizontal side pipes needed to be shortened a couple of millimeters to get the aft legs in the correct position. The arch needed some more adjustments, so they will have to come back another day to finish those.
So I'm mounting the foot blocks for the outhaul line. I will use these roller bearing blocks with very low friction, but they can still take a high load. So the first block will sit here. The line will come from the flip-flop block on the mast, led to this block, and then on to another foot block right next to the pipe that will lead the line aft to the electric winch that we have on the aft deck. This deck is cored, so I'm thinking I'm going to take up a hole, remove the core and fill it with epoxy, and then drill through the epoxy before I mount these blocks. So if there will be any water intrusion in the future, it can not damage the core in here. So that's the plan.
To be able to reach the bolts for the footblock, we took up a hole underneath the lamp in the ceiling.
So now I'll use an Allen key to remove the core between the two layers of glass fiber, and then we will fill that void with epoxy so we can drill through that for the bolt for the foot block.
The hole for the second footblock came down right next to the head, where we could remove the inner sealing to reach the bolts. First few sun rays that we had in whole December, and today is the 16th of December.
I put tape around the holes on the deck to protect the teak. Then I use a putty shovel to push down the epoxy and fill up the void. I have blocked the holes on the inside with tape to prevent the epoxy to run through. The next day the epoxy was cured and I took up the holes for the bolts. I checked with the flashlight that the walls were now solid epoxy. After countersinking the holes in the teak, I applied sealant and put the blocks in place. Now we only had to get the nuts and washers in place on the inside.
Not the most comfortable position, the one that was most forward. But I guess it's easier for me, I have smaller hands. This is what you look like. There is this piece of wood sticking up, and I have to push my arm down on that piece of wood. It just goes inside the flesh.
It's a pretty cold morning. Johan is here and we're going to tune the rig today and hoist the new sails. Johan got them yesterday, I think, so that's going to be really exciting to see how they look. Tuning the mast and getting the correct tension on shrouds and stays is important. If the static load and tension is too low, the dynamic loads will get higher when it's rough out at sea, which eventually could lead to rig failure. So it looks like both the top shrouds are at the same length, right?
Yes.
Or at the same measurement?
So it's equal.
Yeah.
So the mast not leaning on either side.
It's actually much more common that boats have too little tension in the rigging than the other way around. And a good way to check that the tension is correct is to use Selden's method with a simple ruler taped to the shroud, as you saw a glimpse of us using here. We'll leave a link in the description for the guide, so you can check it out. The top shrouds are now correctly adjusted and the mast is straight. So now it's time for the lowers to adjust those, and also the intermediate. Looks good.
So far, looks good.
Still straight.
Yes.
So now Johan is up and putting some tension on the intermediates to get the mast perfectly straight all the way up. And after that, I think we're done. The mast looks very good now. Straight and just a little bit of pre-bend, not too much because the in-mast furling.
Yeah.
The new sails are here.
Yeah.
Exciting. Apparently they weigh much less than the old ones. So the old staysail they put up already, they hoisted, but now they're gonna hoist the mainsail and the genoa. I have to see when you hoist the mainsail how it will look when it goes inside the mast. Since we now have a furling mast, we needed a new mainsail, and we also decided to get a new, lighter and slightly smaller genoa. The sails are from UK Sails and are made from a woven Dyneema cloth from Nautosphere, which makes them strong, durable and with very little stretch. Hoisting the mainsail is done more or less the same way as on a headsail furler. There is a slot in the furling profile where the sail is hoisted in.
With 4 standing battens.
Since the mainsail furls up inside the mast, you cannot have horizontal battens. so you need to use vertical ones instead.
So now I'm going to try the SMF system and roll the sail in. So the SMF system that we have for the new mast is really, you have two motors, one in the mast and this winch back here. And the motor in the mast and the winch are talking together through a canvas system that we have mounted down in the boat. And you control everything with these four, or really these two buttons. These two down here is to control this winch separately, apart from the SMF system. SMF stands for synchronized main furling. So what you do when you want to get the sail out is that you just first look that you have the outhaul line correctly positioned on the winch back here. And then you just press main out. And you should always look at the sails. Yeah, and now the sail is fully hoisted. It takes maybe, I don't know, 20 seconds or so. So what's happening here is that this winch here is pulling on the outhaul line. And the motor in the mast is also letting go of the sail in a certain pace. So the motor in the mast can feel how much tension this winch is putting on the sail or on this line to control how fast it should let go of the sail. So that's why it's called synchronized main furling. So now the sail is out, but if you want to take a reef or if you want to take the sail in again, you just release the outhaul line and press main in. And the mast will just furl the sail back in again. Yeah. And now the sail is back in the mast again. Pretty fast. And I hope that this system will make it more convenient for us to sail as a family, because we're really sailing the boat single-handedly now all the time. And with this system I think that Malin can do the same type of job on the boat as I normally did in the past with the old mast, reefing the main, because that was a pretty heavy job. But now she can do it, and also if something happens to me, she can still sail the boat alone. And that's, for me, that's really a good safety thing. So I really like this SMF system. But now we just have to go out and test it on the sea, of course, and also the new sails. And I will of course talk more about the sails, our new sails, when we go out sailing, but also about this system and the new Furlix rollers we have up front. One thing I forgot to mention is that you can of course run the mast in full manual mode without electrical motors if you should have a power failure or something like that. You just put it in manual mode down here, and you use a normal winch handle to control the furler inside the mast, and you bring up the outhaul line to this winch here, and then you just use it as a normal furling mast. So you have full redundancy if something goes wrong.
Tomorrow the guys who built the arch are coming back. There are a couple of things that needs to be fixed. So we need to tilt the whole arch a little bit backwards, and it needs to be a little bit better aligned. So now we're just gonna remove all the stuff that we've already put around the arch, so it's clear for them to work tomorrow. To get the tilt correct, the guys took off around 20 millimeters on the aft stands and re-welded them on the brackets.
we're going to pull the arch and try to align it with the backstay. Right now it's about 2 centimeters off, so I think it will be possible to pull it without put heat on it. Using a 1-ton chain block to pull the arch straight made the operation swift and easy, and we got it lining up perfectly with the backstay. Finally we have the panels, the solar panels here on the boat. They've been standing at Malin's dad's place for quite some time now, but now we can mount them.
It's a really wintry day today, snowing, like the first proper snow that we've had down here, but it's a little bit too warm for it to stay on the ground. But I'm looking at the arch, which is finally in place. Everything is welded. We have the extended rails in place. Before we only had the normal lifelines like wires here. But there is still some work left. We need to fully mount the solar panels. They're only test mounted now. We need to run all the cable for the panels, for all the antennas. And the antennas need to be in place too. The seats need to be mounted. So there's some small projects left. But I think the arch came out really nicely, both with the design and all the functions. And I think it fit well together with the davits for the dinghy. So there's been a lot of projects on board lately, but slowly it's starting to come together, and now we just want to make all the things done or ready so we at least can use the boat and go out to test sail and sail a little bit in our home waters, because we can't really leave Sweden yet because of the pandemic. So we have to wait, even though we are so eager to start the cruising and go south to warmer climate. But we have one project left that we haven't mentioned yet, and that is the radar. Maybe you saw that we had the radar on the mast before, but we didn't put it back on the mast, because now we're gonna put it on the backstay here. So there will be a pipe following the backstay, and the radar will hang above the solar panels on a gimbal, so it can swing freely when we're heeling, when we're out sailing. So we still have that project left and a bunch of smaller things as always. So stay tuned for more boat projects and coming test sails. Thanks for watching.